геофізиків України Остапенка Павла Олеговича з темою виступу.
I'm giving the floor to the head of the Association of Researchers of Ukraine, Vadim Ostapenko. I understand that later online will work better, and our colleagues will join us. While organizers are looking for my presentation, I would like to say, first of all, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. State Geocadastre, Ministry of Agricultural Policy, for evaluating highly our achievements, and I'm here in order to tell you something about what we are doing. So, in the situation of war, the geoinformation systems are used by our enemies, as we know. Unfortunately, it's not only one country who is our enemy, you know them very well. So various special services working all the time on collecting this geospatial data, hacking state services, hacking services of such NGOs as like we. Therefore, we have to put limits on access to national information as well. So far, I don't see my presentation. Then I will continue without slides. As far as at the beginning of the full-fledged invasion, at the first months, there were very many initiatives on fixation of damage. I think it's the foundation. If we want to rebuild something, if we need, we'll need to take reparations from the enemy states. Therefore, in the procedural sense, we must fix all this. We must identify all this damage, and but it is a very competitive environment. There are very many initiatives, and I'm very happy that all RPZM almost working, DREAM. These are state services which get data on damaged objects and the data on how they are restored. We also have such type of objects and territories which are mined. So it's a space. So besides conventionally speaking points, we also have lots of territories which have been damaged. So people who deal with maps understand this. So we haven't had any information on the territorial ruining. So if there were very many initiatives on this. That's why we decided to identify and indicate something which at that time, in my opinion, nobody did, which was not widely spread. So when we started identifying certain territories of the major priorities, sure, those were agricultural territories because our country is agricultural, and understanding of what agricultural territories, agricultural lands were damaged and to what extent, meaning mechanical damage, then chemical pollution with heavy metals, and then we developed a methodology. And but later it became clear that what we are doing is very useful in terms of demining activities and prioritization of territories for demining purposes. On the slide behind myself, there is a table of potential damaged and territories according to State Emergency Service. When we speak, if we are not speaking about the temporarily occupied territories, which are 18% of the territory, and plus to that 14% of the territory of Ukraine, which is more than 54,000 square kilometers, are potentially damaged and soiled with explosives. And probably you saw in the mass media that to demine territory of Ukraine, it will take more than 700 years. I'm absolutely not satisfied with this as a citizen of the country, and we decided to improve the situation somehow. And what we decided to do in terms of research on these issues.
Well, obviously we do this in the context of our national system. So how does it work? We've singled out the following areas. Deciphering of the imagery, primarily as regards the open soils, because the closed soils is another issue. So we focus on arable lands. We define the parameters of shell craters on the fields, and the density of agricultural fields which are used without mine surveillance. Well, decryption is based on high precision imagery. That was the wrong slide. And again, this is an issue for a separate discussion, because this is quite complicated. Basically, we use 3 periods: before the large-scale invasion, the very moment of de-occupation, and the 3rd period is the current period of time, today, tomorrow, and so on. What are we doing this for? If we speak about imagery taken before the full-scale invasion, we need this to identify arable lands, fields, subsidiary farms, and so-called dacha land plots. This is what people cultivate, be it with hand tools or with tractors. At our initiative, we've identified more than 3,000 land plots of that kind in 3 oblasts, partially even 4, I would say: Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Kherson, and some of Chernihiv Oblast. After the identification, in order to focus on agricultural arable lands, and without dispersing our efforts all over the place, we decided to focus first on agricultural ones. We identified craters, shell craters and bomb craters. In Kharkiv Oblast, we've identified 420,000 shell craters. 420,000, not 420, but 420,000. They identified along the lines of their diameter, their depth, and even the volume of the displaced soil, and we figure out the probable type of munition which resulted in this crater. We analyzed these craters in terms of their density, and this characteristic is being used to understand how many unexploded ordnances are there within the boundaries of certain areas. Because there is a certain rate of failure of munitions. Ukrainian ones have about 10% of detonation failure, but what is used by Russians is about 20% of unexploded munitions. So if there are 10 craters in the field, and we understand where the Russians' positions are, we can figure out that there are at least 2 unexploded ordnances in this area, and this information is very important for subsequent demining activities. The following parameter. We analyze not just the mechanical destruction of the layer of soil, but we also carry out physical and chemical analysis of soils by way of extrapolation, because 270,000 plots is impossible to take samples from. But there's no need to take a sample from each of them. At the next stage, we determine the level of chemical contamination of these lands. This is the village of Kamenka, near the town of Izum, where basically all the land plots are 100% contaminated. All the areas therein are contaminated. And this makes it possible for us to prioritize the reclamation of those lands. There are experts who analyze the density zones. There are 7 types and several sub-types of the density of soils, because of the use of heavy military equipment, because as it rose on the ground, this affects the fertility of the soil. And another thing that we analyze is the craters, shell and bomb craters, identification. On the fields, which are being used without technical surveillance. So we analyze the areas which are not tilled, and we analyze a crater, a bead, for instance, components of munitions which are unexploded munitions, and we dispatch special groups of experts who survey the area by non-technical means first, and then by technical means. The overlap of the craters and two characteristics, and the character of tillage of land, whether it is an cultivated or non-cultivated field. And this slide shows the north of Izum town, and the green ones are the areas which have not been tilled and are not being used in agriculture. But you can see that there are a lot of land plots which sustained considerable mechanical damage, but they are being cultivated already. Probably you've seen videos on the web when people use special equipment, heavy equipment for demining and technical analysis of the land. The problem is that we have a considerable shortage of such machinery, and the farmers themselves do it the way they can. And obviously it is impossible to provide heavy demining equipment at every agricultural field. And it is impossible to monitor whether this is done everywhere. So the farmers are doing it at their own peril. This slide shows agricultural lands which are being used without demining surveillance. Some areas are surveyed, but currently the priority goes to infrastructure, facilities, buildings and settlements. That's why the agricultural lands are not sufficiently surveyed. So all the areas shown in green in this slide is what has been surveyed and monitored by the farmers and used for sowing, for planting, and basically what is being used for agriculture. This parameter is quite a valuable one in order to provide for prioritization, to prioritize what demining squads should be doing first. Being guided by this characteristic, they know where the priority lies. So that's the way we do prioritization. So this kind of analysis in non-technical surveillance of 84,000 square kilometers is our contribution, basically, in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv and Kherson Oblast, in which during half a year we analyzed about 12,000 square kilometers, and we found out that about 9.7 thousand of land is cultivated. This is about 11% of the total area, and only 2.7 square kilometers, which is 3.2% of the arable lands, are not being tilled. So by this very simple and straightforward method of identification of what people has done already, that we can analyze this and prioritize our activities in terms of demining, and it helps the governmental agencies to better understand what is being cultivated in agriculture. This shows our methodology. We have a special interactive handbook. In Chernihiv Oblast, for instance, in one community, they use actively this methodology. You can access this on the web and see how it works. Basically, I can add that this initiative is related to demining. And it is being implemented by the Office of Information and Analytical Support, the Service for Emergency Situations, within the special memorandum of cooperation, which provides for institutional support for relevant agencies. We're now actively looking for donors to finance this. All those present are aware of what kind of work it is, how time-consuming it is. So some of it we do ourselves, some of it is done with the help of other projects. There are a lot of projects, but I'm not going to go through them right now. We have only scratched the surface as regards the work that I've told you about, and I do hope that right after the victory, Ukraine will make all this data public and you will be able to use it. Thank you.